How's it going, everyone? Welcome to Shifting Lanes. My name is Hanson. Thank you so much for tuning in. And in today's video, I want to talk about the 5 autocross tips I received from the 2018 Solo Spec Coupe Champion. Stick around. If this is your first time watching the channel, thank you so much for joining us. There's a lot of stuff going on the Shifting Lanes channel. We've got Project Driver Mod, which is what I'm doing. There's also Project Volvo V70R and also Project IS300. And in addition, there's a lot of stuff that we do on the side, like we drive a lot of new cars, we go to a lot of driving events, so make sure you're subscribed to check out everything that we've done thus far. And if this is your first time tuning in to Project Driver Mod, thank you so much for joining me. Let me give a quick recap of what Project Driver Mod is all about. It's all about making myself a better driver. And I'm trying to make myself a better driver because I'm working towards one goal, and that is to go to the 2019 Tire Rack SCCA Solo Nationals in Lincoln, Nebraska. And it's not just to attend, but it's to actually bring home a trophy for the Solo Spec Coupe class. And in order to become a better driver, I also want to lose a lot of weight. My goal is to lose 32 pounds, so it's less weight for the car to carry. It's a big goal, but I have so many weeks to lose this weight and keep it off. So it's going to be a big challenge. So 2 goals really: become a better driver and lose a lot of weight. With that said, let's get going with this video. So I've been in touch with the 2018 Solo Spec Coupe Champion, Adam Benaway. He's been giving me a lot of great tips, and I've actually done him a disservice in my first video where I've said that the time difference between first place and 10th place is within a second. That may be true for the individual runs, but the way Solo National scoring works out is that they take the best runs from your first and second heats and they add it up. So by that metric, he totally crushed the second place position by over 1.29 seconds. And that is just a huge margin that it's out of this world. That really just shows you how tough autocross can really be, because there's a lot of talented drivers out there and the margins are very small. And for him to come at 1.29 seconds faster than everyone else, that's pretty fantastic. So when he gives you some tips, you better listen. So these are the 5 tips that he gave me, and I want to try and see if I could apply even maybe one of those to today's event. So the very first tip that he's provided is to have a course walk plan. And that makes sense because you need to get used to what the course layout is. You need to know the intricacies of the surfaces. Maybe there's some undulations here and there where you're going to totally unload on one side of the car. So that's absolutely a great tip. It's to walk around, get a sense of where everything is, where the slow sections are, where the very fast transitions are. So that's an absolutely good tip, and it's something that everyone should do, whether it's your first autocross or if it's your 1000th. So I think you talk to anyone, even if you are just starting out in autocross, if you're a novice, they're going to force you to walk through the lap so that you know where everything is. So I think to add more to that is to not just to walk around, but have a plan of what you're going to do in these sections. Understand where you can be a little bit further away from a cone, or you have to be absolutely right on top of the cone in those sections. So absolutely great tip. And he also mentioned that you sometimes have to adapt and just fly by the seat of your pants, even though logic kind of says otherwise. The second tip is to have tidy lines and always cutting distance. Now, I'm not an experienced autocrosser, but what I have found through all the different autocross events that I went to is that this is completely different than road racing, or you know, the logic that you develop from racing video games. Driving high speed around a track, sometimes to achieve the best times, you're not traveling the shortest distance. You're traveling through a path that allows you to have the greatest amount of speed. But given that autocross is such a drastically different type of racing, cutting distance is somewhat more important. So that kind of changes how you approach certain turns. And that's where having a course plan, the first tip, is really important, because you need to figure out, okay, where can I be super tidy? Where can I be super far? And you know, where can I cut distance the most? So, and it's usually probably by the slowest sections. Tip number 3 is to always give it up early in order to get on the throttle sooner. So I don't exactly know what is meant by that, but I'm guessing is that if you have to brake early or brake too much, then do that so that you can get back on the throttle again, so you can correct. Because what I found out, at least in the BRZ is that it's a lot faster to slow down than it is to get back up to speed. So if you need to correct quickly, I think just give it up, apply the brakes so you can correct your orientation and get back on the throttle. Tip number 4 is to have minimal steering input, because extra input equals wasted energy. This is totally true, because the more steering input that you're putting in translates to more grip that you're commanding from the front tires. Whereas if you could minimize the steering input, that means that you don't have to reorient the car, you don't have to upset the car's balance as much, so that you could have a tidier line. Again, like, all these tips kind of intertwine to one another. And lastly, tip number 5 is that car placement is better than speed. Now, there's a couple of caveats to this. There's some turns where speed is more important than the car placement itself, but according to Adam, this is more of a rare situation. So I've heard other tips where, like, backsiding the cones, trying to get as close to the cones as much as possible. This is all about car placement. It's also about cutting distance. Again, where you are on the cone may dictate how far away you are from the next cone. He hasn't mentioned, and probably the reason why he didn't mention this is because this is somewhat cliche, but always looking up and always planning ahead how to position your car. Better to give up speed here so that you can place your car properly for the next turn. So here I am in the next day. I couldn't record last night after Autocross because it was too late at night. It was an afternoon event. And but that's okay, because today is Saturday, which means that it's weighing day for me. This is the second part of Project Driver Mod, is me weighing myself. So I stepped on the scale this morning and I weighed 213.6 pounds. That means between weeks 1 and 2 I lost 0.6 pounds. That's a lot less than my first week's weight loss, which was 2.8 pounds, but again, at the very beginning it's the most drastic weight loss and then it tapers off. So in a span of 14 days, I've lost a total of 3.4 pounds, that's pretty aggressive still. So very happy about that. And really the only thing that I've done is just tracking my food intake. Again, what gets measured gets improved. So if you measure the amount of calories that's going into your body, you should somewhat be more conscious about what you're eating, and you're going to eat less. So that's the whole point. Eventually I may try to start other diets just to see if I could lose a little bit more weight, maybe just changing my eating habits, so on and so forth. But anyway, let's talk about last night's Autocross. And by the way, if you notice anything different around here, it's because I'm not sitting in my 2013 Subaru BRZ. In fact, I'm sitting in the 2018 Toyota 86. So for the keen-eyed viewers out there, you might notice that this is not the same car. But anyway, the reason why I'm sitting in this is because I have this for the week, and I'm going to review this basically. You can always catch the good, bad, and ugly reviews, and on our channel we review a bunch of press cars, and this week it's the Toyota 86's turn. So it should be fairly easy for me to review because I have an older model of this to compare against. So anyway, getting back on topic with the Autocross, I shared with you the 5 tips from Adam Benaway, and I tried to apply it, and to be honest with you, it's very difficult to really apply everything that everyone tells you, because it all boils down to experience and also muscle memory. So the reality is practice makes perfect, but it's always good for someone to give you tips on what you should do, what you should look out for, and I definitely tried to apply most of those things yesterday. I did do a course walkthrough. I did spot some potholes here and there, areas that you should totally avoid, but when you're walking and when you're driving it at speed, it's a totally different experience. The big, long bumps that you're walking through become very short ones when you're driving at speed. So that's something that you should keep in mind when you're walking through the different turns, that it's going to look completely different when you're traveling at speed. And while I was walking through the course, I was also imagining the lines that I should take. And it helped that in the morning session of that day, there was an Autocross School. So you should keep on the lookout for all these different Autocross schools. It's structured differently than autocrosses. You get a lot more runs. It's a little bit more expensive, but more importantly, you get access to instructors. You also get a ton more runs, and you could just rerun through various technical sections as much as you want. So that's an added benefit. But basically, because that was held in the morning, you got to see some racing lines from the leftover rubber. So you could it kind of tells you, okay, this was the fastest way around a corner. So that helped me visualize which path I should take as I go through the turns. The one tip that really stood out to me was giving it up early so you could get on the throttle sooner. So I tried to employ that, and I think I may have over-employed that because I was on the brakes a little too much just so I can get back on the throttle again. And for some of the other tips, like car placement is better than speed, I couldn't really exercise that because I have the problem of still not looking up enough, looking ahead, and it's just something that improves over the runs. In the last run, I was more cognizant about reminding myself to always look up. So like during the big sweeping turns, I reminded myself, okay, look out the window. And when I did that, I was able to kind of place the car a little bit better. But in my earlier runs, it was more secondary or tertiary to think about car placement. Again, that's just because of my experience level, and also sort of a bad habit that I'm starting to have of just kind of like keeping my eyes down between this glass and not using my whole periphery. But in terms of my lap times, the best that I could do was 54.6 something. There were no other Solo Spec Coupe cars there, so I couldn't really compare my times, but I've been told that the Solo Spec Coupe class is very close to the STX class for the Scion FRSs and Subaru BRZs. There was at least one other STX car there, and they were running in the 49 seconds. Now, the difference between that time is most likely because of driving skill levels and less about the car differences. And that's basically on track with what I've been seeing in my past autocrosses. I'm usually about, in a 50-second course, I'm about 5 seconds slower than the fastest person in the Solo Spec Coupe or the STX class. For me to be competitive at the national level, I'm still very far away from that. Thankfully, there's plenty more of autocross sessions in the future, and I'm definitely going to go to all of them. So anyway, just to wrap things up, the next autocross session is in October 13th. I won't be doing a video next week I won't be doing an autocross video next week because I will be on travel. So taking that place will be the review of this Toyota 86, the good, bad, and ugly. So I want to thank Adam Benaway, he's the 2018 Solo Spec Coupe Champion, for providing me with these 5 autocross tips. And while I was chatting with him, I found out that he works for racingforheroes.org. Now, that is a really cool nonprofit organization. It helps service disabled vets, like veterans with trauma, like PTSD, to help reintroduce them into society by giving them a mission. Now, this isn't going into battle, but it's going into a race. It's a really cool cause. It's a really cool concept. So if you're interested in donating or learning more about racingforheroes.org, I'm going to link to them down below. So definitely go check them out. Anyway, with that said, I've gone on long enough. This has been a very long video. Thank you so much for tuning in and sticking around till the end. Again, a quick reminder that there's not going to be an autocross or Project Driver Mod update for next week because I'll be out of town. But in 2 weeks, many more updates to come. So anyway, thank you for tuning in, and I will see you next time.